eyes of flame, unmasking the players in the shadowed game, where the silence breaks, the hidden shakes. She names the unspoken, the world away.
Well, hello. We got 10 of us in the Telegram chat. We got Just Fed Up over on Pilled and Danny over on Rumble. I appreciate everybody being here. We've got quite a bit to cover today. I've been collecting news. If you've been in the chat, you've seen that I've been collecting news to talk about today. And of course, one of the big things we've got to talk about is what the hell's been going on in Iran. You think maybe that is a good topic?
Yeah, I think it's a big blanket that Talk about.
Let me start with this. It's about a 5-minute, almost a 6-minute video. Let me start with this because I think it's a good way to kick us off.
Wants to tell you. It isn't about toppling Iran's regime before you ask. It's about reshaping the global world order. And I think that's happening right now. And I want to tell you how Britain is staring down the barrel of a dark age we haven't seen for over 1,000 years. This all comes, of course, as President Trump says Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one in Iran if the key shipping lane in the Strait of Hormuz is not reopened. Of course, lots of expletives there we have blurred out for you. But this is bigger than a headline or a Truth Social post in this war, and the evidence is not actually being kept from us. We're just blind to seeing it because nobody's talking about it. America has made no secret of its new doctrine. It is stepping back from being the world's police and repositioning itself as a powerful, self-reliant fortress.
That is why President Trump has drawn a new strategic map from Greenland to the Gulf of America to the Panama Canal and its surrounding countries. At the Department of War, we call this strategic map the Greater North America.
Interesting stuff, isn't it? So what does America actually gain from this war before we get onto the Greater North America? Well, let's look at a map here, shall we? I'll bring this up for you. The Strait of Hormuz, you can see there, is one of the most critical energy choke points on this planet. It is also a whopping 45% of China's oil flowing through it. That is a lot of oil that China needs. But it isn't just Iran. Cast your minds back to January this year, where Trump effectively has now captured Venezuela and declared its oil is under their control. And if you have a look at this graph, who there in the red relies heavily on that oil? Well, it looks like China to me. Now consider the impeccable timing of all of this since January. America is right in the middle of a tariff and trade negotiation with the very stubborn and very powerful, might I add, Chinese government, who are not budging on Donald Trump's arrangements here. Well, look who's got the upper hand all of a sudden. It's America. They are now controlling the vast swathes of oil that China needs. That puts them in a very strong position going forward on these tariff agreements. And Europe is also getting hit hard a lot with this. With Russian energy totally off the table and domestic energy security weakened by this leftist obsession with net zero, Europe is becoming increasingly dependent on external oil supply and energy supply. And that puts America, again, in a very strong position because we will soon be wholly dependent on American supplies of oil and gas. They will dictate terms and use energy as leverage, not just economically, but geopolitically too. And what do we know that they really want? Greenland. They want Greenland. They've made that very clear and they didn't get it yet. So the longer this war drags on, the more dependent the world is becoming on the USA. And it's not accidental. What we're seeing is the emergence of what you heard from Pete Hegseth there, the Secretary of State for War, and described by Donald Trump as the Greater North America. It is stretching from Greenland down through the Panama Canal, securing the entire hemisphere as a self-sufficient economic and security zone for the United States of America. But guess who's not on there? Europe. We are not part of America's future plans as it withdraws from the world. And it isn't just a coincidence that the United Kingdom has been targeted the most by Trump and America of late. The UK is internationally renowned for its special relationship with America. Trump is signalling that that relationship is over, not just to us, but to everyone else around us. And frankly, Keir Starmer gave him ample reason to do so, of course. But also because Trump can now point to our allies and say, you all let us down. And in his own words, as he said, we won't forget it. It is the perfect reason for America to withdraw from the global stage. So no more global policing, no more endless foreign commitments, just a fortified, resource-rich power base that others have no choice but to rely on. That is the new America. And that brings us to Britain, because the consequences for us will be catastrophic. Right now, we are dangerously exposed. We have no energy security. We import around 60% of our food. We have no major industry. Our military is decimated, as we're hearing time and time again. And politically, we are deeply fractured now. Even culturally, we are crumbling at the seams, dominated by global political issues like Gaza, climate fanaticism, and movements like BLM that frankly have nothing to do with the state of play in Britain. The things that once united us, our faith and our national identity, are now pulling us apart due to years of left-wing globalism. Unless we act quickly and decisively, Britain risks entering a dark age as America retreats, one that we haven't seen for over 1,000 years.
So what are your thoughts on that?
I think you nailed.
Let me play this one.
In English, I would simply say, once again, what I said in the Urbi et Orbi message on Sunday, asking all people of goodwill to search always for peace and not violence, to reject war, especially a war which many people have said is an unjust war, which is continuing to escalate, and which is not resolving anything. In fact, we have a worldwide economic crisis, energy crisis, situation in the Middle East of great instability, which is only provoking more hatred throughout the world. So come back to the table, let's talk, let's look for solutions in a peaceful way, and let's remember especially the innocent, children, the elderly, the sick, so many people who have already become or will become victims of this continued warfare. To remind all that attacks on civilian infrastructure is against international law, but that it is also a sign of the hatred, the division, the destruction that the human being is capable of. And we all want to work for peace. People want peace. I would invite the citizens of all the countries involved to contact the authorities, political leaders, congressmen, to ask them, tell them to work for peace and to reject war always. Thank you very much.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on that? Adding that to what this other guy just said.
I think he's trying to encourage them to start coming forward, being part of the conversation.
I think there's a deeper story. Is it okay? Notice he said many people have said is an unjust war. He's not saying it's unjust. He's saying people are saying it's unjust. And of course, the media is never want for an opportunity to say that he was calling out Trump. Carolyn was asked the question. Let me play what she said.
So Pope said yesterday, and I quote him, God does not listen to the prayer of those who wage war. Can you comment on that?
I think...
Oops, I apologize.
So Pope said yesterday, and I quote him, God does not listen to the prayer of those who wage war. Can you comment on that?
I think our nation was a nation founded 250 years ago almost on Judeo-Christian values, and we've seen presidents, we've seen the leaders of the Department of War, and we've seen our troops go to prayer during the most turbulent times in our nation's history. And I don't think there's anything wrong with our military leaders or with the president calling on the American people to pray for our service members and those who are serving our country overseas. In fact, I think it's a very noble thing.
That was apologize for dropping that audio, but I don't think she was speaking to the question properly. Questions being asked as to whether or not this is a just war. Okay. If we go backwards to Pope John Paul II, he detailed what a just war is. And you've got to ask yourself the question, why are they going after Trump? Because it's not Trump that's targeting citizens. In fact, all he's ever done is target military targets. So this article just came out yesterday, which I thought was timely. President Donald Trump seems to be adhering religiously to just war doctrine. If he can conclude epic fury in a just war manner, he will earn his legacy as the just war president. Christian just war doctrine builds upon the teaching of St. Augustine in the 5th century. As St. Augustine wrote about righteous war in City of God, it is the wrongdoing of the opposing party which compels the wise man to wage just wars. So in other words, what your enemy is doing compels you to do something about it. The modern just war doctrine has 4 essential elements, and this is from Pope John Paul. He calls him St. John Paul the Great. Pope John Paul wrote this in 1997 in the Catechism of the Catholic Church. He said, 1, the risk posed by an aggressor must be lasting, grave, and certain. Let's talk about that. Would you say what Iran has been doing is lasting, grave, and uncertain? Anybody?
Most certainly. It's not.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Did you say lasting, brave, and uncertain?
That's the first condition of a just war.
So what has Iran been doing? Is it well, I mean, it's lasted 47 years.
47 years is lasting,
brave?
Right? Grave?
Brave is in the eyes of the beholder. I guess in their eyes it's brave to stand up to the great Satan, right? So that's brave of them, I guess.
Not brave. Not brave. The actions of the aggressor are lasting, grave, in other words, dire consequences, and uncertain. So Iran, for 47 years, has been waging war in the region, bombing its neighbors, threatening the U.S. and Israel constantly. Would that be considered lasting, grave, and uncertain?
Well, yeah, I mean, it would be grave if they got a nuclear weapon as well.
Okay, so that's an outward facing. What about internal? If you've got 45,000 people that have, yes, you're killing your own citizens. Killing your own citizens is lasting, grave, and uncertain, right?
Now, what does uncertain mean? I'm not.
It means you don't have a sense of it ending. You're never. There's never a moment to breathe, right? Because you're constantly looking over your shoulder, waiting for the next move. Okay.
Okay.
Must be lasting, grave, and I'm sorry, certain. CERTAIN, which has been true. The second condition, all other means of putting an end to it must have been shown to be impractical or ineffective. How many times we have to go through a JCPOA-like set of conditions before we realize they had no intentions of adhering to any agreement, right?
Yeah, I agree. That's definitely been said. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So 3, there must be serious prospects of success. So you can look at it from 2 ways. For Iran, serious prospects of success reminds me of what Rubio said, where they were building over 100 ballistic missiles a week with the idea of barraging their neighbors as cover while they took their 60% enriched uranium and built it to the 90%, which according to the IAEA was about a 2-week breakout, right? So there's serious prospects of them having success in lasting, grave, and certain catastrophic events, right? Would you agree Iran fits that as well?
I would agree with that.
And the fourth one, the use of arms must not produce evils and disorders graver than the evil to be eliminated. So what that's saying is our use of arms against the aggressor cannot produce an evil or a disorder that's worse than what we're trying to fight. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, if he carried out what he said he was going to do, which Iran would be in a blackout, that could cause a lot of death and harm to the population. If you hit the desalinization plants and certain things, it could cause a lot of death. So, I mean, I don't know. That was yet to be told.
This is about the oppressor, the oppressed going after the aggressor, right? The use of arms must not produce evils. So this is where I think the rhetoric is coming in that Trump is hitting infrastructure, which to date, I've seen no examples of that. Every bridge taken out was used by the IRGC. Carg Island last night had some targets hit. They, again, were military targets, right? We've not hit anything civilian.
Yeah, bridges wouldn't, I don't think would qualify. I mean,
no,
I don't think that would cause
they were
super
definitely
harm.
You don't think they would what?
I don't think taking out bridges would cause drastic harm to the population, right?
On top of that, we know for a fact that they were military targets, right?
Yeah. I mean, you can classify a lot of things as military targets. Power,
well, they were being used, according to the reports. The first bridge that was taken out last week was strictly used by the IRGC. The 7 bridges that came after that were used to funnel weapons from the interior of Iran to closer to the borders. And then what did we do? We took out those 7 bridges. We took out some more military targets on Carg Island. So what you see here is just war doctrine right there in that paragraph. And Trump is adhering to just war doctrine. So Pope Leo said that many people have said is an unjust war. Notice he didn't say it. Did you catch that?
Can you say that again?
Pope Leo said in his little spiel that I played that many people have said this is an unjust war. He didn't say it was unjust. He said people have said it was unjust. There's a distinction there. Did you catch it?
Yeah, people say a lot of things. Yeah, I definitely get the distinction, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and what did he say? He says, we are advocating, call everybody you want peace. And we now know that China, Russia, and Pakistan are working together with the U.S. in the background on a peace deal called the Islamabad Accord, and that there are 15 points, essentially, that have been, the framework is there. In fact, Trump has talked about it. It's been brought out. There's been a lot of fake news. CNN was called out for their fake news. But there's been a lot of fake news as to what those points are. Those points have yet to be released. But Trump is not going to say anything positive about a framework that allows Iran to get a nuclear weapon, right? He's been saying this forever. Are you following?
Yeah, a lot of fake shit. A lot of fake shit out there right now.
Right.
And didn't Trump also say that the existing regime has to go?
Trump has said repeatedly regime change was not his goal. His goal was that Iran never have a nuclear weapon. And I'm going to show you evidence where I think the current president of Iran is who Trump is dealing with. I'll show you that in a second. So the guy that wrote this article was the IG for the DOD. And he worked under Bush 1. he's actually well renowned. He speaks well. But he says, considering what's happening in Iran, I would add to my just war notes Pope John Paul II's concluding admonition to government leaders for summarizing the 4 traditional just war elements. The evaluation of these conditions for moral legitimacy belongs to the prudential judgment of those who have responsibility for the common good. Our 47th Commander-in-Chief can meet all 4 just war elements. Isn't that interesting? When Trump announced military action against the regime in Iran in February, he described the risk. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime. And then he goes on, for 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder. So let me just stop here for a second and pull it all into context. We started out going after Hamas in Gaza. We've been pounding the Houthis and Hezbollah in Yemen and in Lebanon. We've been going after ISIS elements down in Somalia and other parts of Africa. We've been kind of going after all these hotspots. And what's really interesting is that Iran was funding all of that. Remember, I showed you Zelengani network, the Zanjani network. Those were funding all this terrorism. We've showed you that, how they leveraged the City of London shadow banking system to move money into the hands of those that would wage crises, wage war against anybody. Also put out, remember he said here, eliminating the imminent threats from the Iranian regime. This has been a bone of contention because nobody heard what the imminent threat was, unless, of course, you listened to Marco Rubio. What did he tell you? You guys remember this, right? They were building hundreds of bombs a week or a month, faster than anybody could count, if you recall, to barrage their neighbors as cover while they got together their nuclear bomb, which the IAEA reported is about a 2-week breakout. Is that an imminent threat or not? I guess it's...
Well, absolutely. And I'll add something to that, too. It's the exact same playbook that North Korea did. North Korea amassed so much artillery and things like that that they could have just wiped out South Korea, that they got the nuclear weapon.
Right. And they were being funded to do just that until Trump got in there. In fact, it was more imminent than Iran at the time. That's why he went into North Korea. So I'm pointing out that for all the rhetoric out there, this is not our war from Starmer and Mertz and what's his face. I never remember his name down in Australia. And them trying to not get involved with helping to solve the problem they actually created, puts it square into the question as to why is Mark Rutte in the U.S. today for 4 days? Right? Trump has already said, we won't be there for you. Go after your own damn oil. He said it, right? Those are his words. Anybody got a thought as to why Mark Rutte is here?
He's here to kiss ass.
You think, maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've been listening. There's a great, I didn't get through all of it because I had to start the show, but Vice President Vance is in Hungary today. And you know what he's talking about? This very thing. Orban himself said, our problem is Brussels. Brussels, they call it the Brussels effect, right? All the policies that get kind of exported around the world, DEI being one of them. But the reason why they can do that is because there's an interdependency with the City of London. Who funds it, right? So when I said the other day, what's going on in Iran is really about Europe, do you see it now? Seems pretty obvious, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So it brings up another question, because another thing that came out
The city
today.
of London.
I'm sorry? Would,
So it brings up another question because
you got to mute. Go ahead, Diane. What were you saying?
so it brings up another question because
Whoever's in the background, if you're playing the, there you go.
I said that the root was that they were dealing with the city of London.
Yeah, it's very real, but it also shows a fracture in the NATO coalition. And your sound in the background is feeding through, so you got to mute that to talk, okay? So one of the things I wanted to bring up, let me find it. I gotta find it. I gotta find where my stuff is. I found this interesting because, oh, here it is. Copy link. Today, Just the News put this article out. Xi Jinping carries out record-breaking punishments inside CCP amid purge of generals. And you find out through this article that since 2014, he's purged 7.2 million officials. Been saying for years he's been eradicating corruption. Of course, the West paints it as he's purging for extreme loyalty to him. One of the things I want to show though, and let me get to where this is.
Could it be possible that the globalists basically were going to force Iran to get the bomb, or they were going to push them to get the bomb to force Trump into a corner? Because
okay, so when Ukraine started, both Russia and China both said they would not use nuclear. Iran wanted nuclear. They wanted to annihilate their neighbors. They were going to try to do that with a smaller version of the bomb, even though fallout would have hit the whole region. So I do think there's some validity to what you're saying. Would that have happened? I don't know, because we've been funding them for decades and they never produced it. I do think something changed when Khomeini died. For as many people as debunks the 2003 fatwa, seems to be falling under an interesting time frame, knowing now that for sure Khomeini is dead, right? And his son, even though he left written instructions that he was not to be made the supreme leader, his son was made the supreme leader, even though he's in a hospital bed somewhere, which means they got a figurehead. Wait till I show you what I found, that it helps explain what we're watching. So, like I said, let me bring this back over here. This is the article from Just the News about what's happening in China. That since the beginning of this year, the CCP has investigated many senior officials, including two high-level CCP officials, Central Military Commission, Vice Chairman, Chief of Commission's Joint Staff Department, as well as Politburo member, the Chongqing mayor, and 17 centrally managed cadres. Okay, so there's a huge purge going on in China, which I've told you about. I've been watching this go on since 2016. In actuality, he began his purging in 2014 when I do some research on it. But what I'm finding out, it's true that the PLA has deep historical roots to Maoist revolutionary thought. Modern purges under Xi Jinping are less about removing Maoist-aligned individuals and more about eliminating personal power bases and fractional loyalties. What do you think that means?
A Maoist cleanup.
It's not about Mao. What you find out is there is a central military commission that Xi Jinping put into the Constitution in 2017. And what he's doing, what ended up happening, is there was a vice chairman role that started to develop. And what it was is it was hollowing out the chairman's position, not his, the chairman of the military. It was, which he is. It was hollowing out the chairman's role because of this, quote, vice chair role. And he's been purging all of those individuals that are aligned with that, plus public officials for corruption. He's purging his own deep state. Do you hear it? Dismantling patronage networks, purging personal appointees. People he actually promoted, he's purging. We've seen Trump do that, right? Emphasis on the chairman's responsibility versus the vice chair responsibility, and strategic readiness. Now, the West is painting it as he's preparing his military to attack Thailand by 2027. I don't see that as what he's doing, especially when you start adding some perspective. So the U.S. military, as you know, has been purging, right? We're getting rid of all the DEI and misaligned generals, right? We got widespread removals, high-level targets, purge rationale, impact on the command. This has been going on in the U.S. Look at what also has been going on in Russia since early 24. Russia's been doing a purge. Israel's been doing a purge. Take a guess who has not done any purging.
UK.
Aha, there you go. However, they've been scaling back their military. They're down to about 72 to 73,000 soldiers right now. They claim they don't have the money for a military. So they're not purging their military in the sense that you would see it. They're just basically getting rid of it. Do you see that? They don't even have military equipment. Isn't that interesting? So we're seeing the four biggest powers, right? Iran obviously had their military purged. China, Russia, and the U.S. all purged. That video I started with talked about Trump wants Greenland. I've shown you in the past, if I have to bring that up again, I will, where this isn't about Greenland becoming a part of the United States. It's about Greenland becoming sovereign. Remember the Prime Minister of Greenland saying they've been working for 5 years on their draft constitution? Remember that? Back in 2024? You go back 5 years, it takes you to 2019 when that infamous picture of Trump Hotel sitting on Greenland. Remember that? We've been helping them with their constitution. That's pretty evident. So Trump is looking at taking the Western Hemisphere and securing it, making it self-reliant. So when you look at what he did in Panama, you look at what he's doing with Greenland, you look at Venezuela and Colombia and Cuba, you look at all these different areas where where there's a Trump touch. We call it the Dunroe Doctrine, right? But what we've got is this very American, North-South American, not U.S., but a very American-centric security zone. Do you see that? Which is a problem for places like the UK, who are completely dependent on the U.S. Are we seeing a bigger global picture? Anybody have any thoughts?
In the beginning of this, it never occurred to me that we were moving to a Western hemisphere type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Never occurred to me. And I think it's amazing to watch it happen and understand why it's being done that way. And how much wisdom there is in doing it that way.
Well, another thing happened today that was interesting is our ambassador to the World Trade Organization came back and said, these people are idiots. Let me see if I can get this bigger. It's centered. But he said, after returning from the WTO 14th Ministerial Conference, Ambassador Jameson Greer published an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. That's actually below this. He says the WTO isn't a serious forum. That's what I was thinking as I sat through the triumphant finale of the 4-hour opening session. He's saying it's not what they won't do. They won't act on issues of trade imbalances. He arrives skeptic. The WTO is ineffective and dysfunctional. Take one example. WTO members since 1998 have refrained from imposing tariffs on electronic products like software and music that can be transmitted digitally, even though this approach has become the default practice globally. The WTO still goes through a performative review of this e-commerce moratorium on digital tariffs every 2 years. Doing so consumes enormous time and energy, and many members hold the renewal hostage to trade away for unregulated objectives. Isn't that interesting? Thank you, S. Jones. I really appreciate that. Actually, let me call those out right now. I've got 3 cookies already today. I'm not used to getting cookies. Just Fed Up started the show with a cookie, and then Tweety52 gave me another one, and S. Jones just gave me a third one. I appreciate that so much. I really do. So here we have a WTO that's also ineffective. And then you've got Orban saying, our issue is Brussels. I don't know. I will end, I think, with him. But if our issue is Brussels, which is interdependent with the City of London, I think that bolsters the thought that our issue is Europe, not Iran. What do you think?
Yep.
Okay, so let me show you what I found today. The current president... Oh, no, not him. I got the wrong headline up. Let me bring that up. No. I'm sorry, I got my wrong window open. Okay. I was looking up today some particulars about did the president of Iran flee the country? No, he hasn't. There's no evidence that he's fled. So I asked the question, did he absolutely flee? Again, it says no. But look what he's doing. He's in diplomatic negotiations. He's the guy who's working with the U.S. and Pakistan. So when Trump is talking about the new leadership, he's saying this guy wasn't really the leadership before as president of Iran. Are you catching the drift here? Anybody got any thoughts on that?
The leadership coming out of the EU, right?
No, this guy is president of Iran. And he
head of every country.
Yes, but what that's saying is the IRGC was really the head of Iran until we took care of it. And every time Trump says we're working with the new leadership in Iran, and this guy is telling you today that he's participating in the peace talks with the U.S. in Islamabad. Are you catching what that's really saying? Anybody? Did I stump you?
He's the new leader.
I'm sorry?
He's the new leader. He's taken control. He's the new leader.
He's the leader. Now.
He's the leader, yeah. If he's the one negotiating.
He's doing the negotiating. That came out today. He put it out on his X account. So he held a 25-minute phone call, today, with Japanese Prime Minister. Now are we seeing why she was here? Isn't the timing interesting?
Now, is this the same guy that a couple of weeks ago he was talking about he feels like he's just a puppet? They're not allowing him to make any statements, and he's been put on the sidelines. He was complaining.
He was complaining. This is that guy. Now that the IRGC is basically impotent, right? we're finding out he's the one involved in the diplomatic talks with Pakistan, the Islamabad Accords. Don't you find that interesting? A nice little piece of information? He's ready to sacrifice his life for the nation.
I find that super. It kind of tells me that the IRGC, that's something. I mean, I don't know how much power they have left. They've definitely lost some kind of power.
Yeah. The IRGC is not in control. So, who was bombing last night?
Well, it's my understanding that they're basically broke up into 34 different districts, right?
I already looked it up. 21.
21 different districts, and they all act
independently,
autonomously if in the event of something happening to the Khomeini or whatever, right? So that would explain a lot. A lot of these districts are just acting out of whatever they want to do. They're not really taking, orders from any kind of leadership in Tehran.
So here's the assessment from the MPIDSA. Iranian forces are deployed in decentralized manner into 31 provincial commands and 50 brigades. When you start digging in, what you find out is Quds Force, which was Soleimani, right? Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, Houthis in Yemen, and other groups, ISIS-aligned type groups, are all actually a part of these decentralized command. It was designed should anything catastrophic happen, if they lost communication, leadership, purge, whatever, that these groups could act independently. That's what was attacking last night.
Here's the truth about this war that nobody wants to tell you. It isn't about
It isn't that one. I did a video last night. I gotta go find it now. Here's the video.
Yeah, we just saw multiple.
Okay, this is from last night. This is a reporter on the ground in Israel. Listen carefully to what he's saying.
Incoming, one of them screamed over our... And that would be either the detonation of an interceptor missile or a successful interception of an Iranian missile. We saw one of those with the secondary boosters, and they're really terrifying because they're firing the propellant of the missile itself, trying to scream faster, more than 1,000 miles an hour as it's re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. It'll fire that secondary booster, try and evade the interceptor missiles and hit a target on the ground. That one, as it was firing its secondary booster, we saw two interceptors tracing for it, and then it went out over the Mediterranean, over the water there. So it missed, and that's obviously a good sign. We have some deep rumbles from a couple other explosions here. I've just got from the IDF. I was able to text just now. I'm curious because we had about 20 minutes ago had alerts in the south and had been told that that was potentially from the Houthis in Yemen, that missile in southern Israel was not from Iran. This latest attack on Tel Aviv in central Israel, I'm told by the IDF, was in fact fired by Iran. And the biggest questions here we have is the reaction.
So did you catch that? You got two different groups, a little group in Iran and the Houthis in Yemen. That's your decentralized group, right? One of the things that got me last night when we were talking about this in chat is Trump didn't say anything about this breach of the ceasefire. And then it occurs to me, well, when you're decentralized or fragmented the way the IRGC is, somebody didn't get the memo. And then this morning, Trump did put out where he made a comment, the country supplying military weapons to Iran will be immediately tariffed. He also made a comment, what was it, yesterday or Monday, about the Kurds were supposed to be giving or transporting weapons to the Iranian people, and the Kurds kept them. He was not pleased. Remember that? And then he's saying today that they'll work closely with Iran, which we have determined has gone through what will be a very productive regime change. So their president is a real president, evidently, don't you think? And he put this out. There will be no enrichment of uranium. The United States will, working with Iran, dig up and remove all of the deeply buried B-2 bombers, nuclear dust. It is now and has been under very exacting satellite surveillance through Space Force. Nothing has been touched from the date of the attack. We are and will be talking tariff and sanctions relief with Iran. Many of the 15 points have already been agreed to. We've been hearing all over the place about a 10-point plan. This is 15. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So what are your thoughts now? Does it sound like Iran's coming to an end?
Yes, and it does. And the 15-point plan is the United States plan that was first rejected by Iran. So the 10-point plan that the fake news media has been slamming around is Iran's plan that was rejected by the United States.
Right.
It's clearly, narrative driven.
Obviously. Which is why he went after CNN yesterday, right?
Now, no one's seen have we seen the 15-point plan?
No, nobody's seen it. It's been kept close to the vest. But he said many of the 15 points have been agreed to. Well, the big hard line, Trump would not have said that if, in fact, nuclear enrichment was still on the table. Right?
I absolutely would not have said that. Especially, you just read the statement that he made. Obviously.
So, a big day for world peace. This is from this morning, or this afternoon at noon. Big day for world peace. Iran wants it to happen. They've had enough. Likewise, so has everyone else. The United States of America will be helping with the traffic buildup in the Strait of Hormuz. There will be lots of positive action. Big money will be made. Iran can start the reconstruction process. We'll be loading up with supplies of all kinds and just, quote, hanging around in order to make sure that everything goes well. I feel confident that it will. Just like we are experiencing in the United States, this could be the golden age for the Middle East. Isn't that an interesting statement? So whatever happened yesterday really set the stage for big things to happen today. And I find it interesting that Mark Rutte is sitting here in D.C. while he's making these posts. Don't you? And he put this out 7:30 this morning. He also talks about tariffing the countries. This is from the Iranian government. Minister of Foreign Affairs. On behalf of the Islamic Republic of Iran, I express gratitude and appreciation for my dear brothers, Prime Minister Pakistan Sharif, and His Honor the Field Marshal Mansour, for their tireless efforts to end the war in the region. This is the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Iran. In response to the brotherly request of Sharif in his tweet, and considering the request by the U.S. for negotiations based on its 15-point proposal, as well as announcement by POTUS about acceptance of the ground framework of Iran's 10-point proposal as a basis for negotiations, I hereby declare on behalf of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, if attacks against Iran are halted, our powerful armed forces will cease their defensive operations. Obviously, that was a bit of a propaganda statement. For a period of 2 weeks, safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz will be possible via coordination with Iran's armed forces and with due consideration of technical limitations. So he's playing it close to the vest himself, defensive operations. But I find it interesting that today is a new day. What do you think?
I don't think
today.
I've ever seen a peace proposal go perfectly smoothly without any kind of crossfire or anything like that. I've never seen it. So some things are, so just kind of let things settle in, right? Some things are to be expected.
Yeah, I don't know that it goes completely smoothly, but you've got a situation where there are willing parties in the negotiation. We didn't have that yesterday, right? Pakistan
That's a good
obviously got somewhere and begged for 2 weeks. Trump agreed to the 2 weeks. We were concerned last night because there were obvious missiles being lobbed against the neighboring countries. But then you find out, well, there's 31 different groups. And those 31 groups are fragmented. They don't have a central command anymore. And by their own design, they don't have to. So what are your thoughts?
I mean, my thoughts are, I think it's going pretty well right now. I mean, I'm just looking, but Israel is definitely an outlier right now. I mean, they're not going to back off of Hezbollah at the moment. So,
Well, this isn't about Hezbollah, though.
right, and Trump and his administration have stated that today.
Right.
Now, Iran is saying something different. So, I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see here.
Iran isn't, they haven't accepted Hezbollah as their problem.
They said that they need cessation of Israel's cessation of their attacks against Lebanon.
That it is. This doesn't say that.
I understand.
This is the official statement.
Well, it was a statement put out today by Iran.
This is today too. Who put out
Right,
the other
Trump
statement?
I don't know exactly who. It was an official in Iran, and the Trump administration came out and they clarified that Lebanon was not on the table in this peace agreement.
It isn't. That's what I'm getting at. I don't know who put that statement out, but this is the official statement. Whoever put out that other statement is trying to add to it. That's not a part of what's going on in Iran. That's something different. So I don't know where they would come off saying that you have to cease your aggression against Hezbollah. It doesn't make sense to me.
I know. I don't have the full story there. It's like they thought it was. Iran is saying they thought that was part of the agreement. And I don't know where the miscommunication came through Islamabad or I don't know. But it definitely forced the administration to come out and clarify things. So I don't know yet. I just don't know.
So, Reckon John, I don't understand what you mean by Israel throwing wrenches into the works. I haven't seen that. I don't know what you're referring to. I honestly don't. I'm not being obtuse here, but it wasn't Israel that preached the peace, the ceasefire. It was the Houthis and Hezbollah. They were working together and breached the ceasefire. And we just explained that a fragmented IRGC allowed for that to happen. Israel didn't bomb Jordan. I don't know where you're getting at. There's no way Israel would bomb Jordan. Would they bomb a Hezbollah or Houthi target? Yeah. I don't know where you're coming from with that. There's no way Israel's going to bomb one of their neighbors who supports what they're doing against Iran. I mean, that doesn't even make sense.
I don't know if he said Jordan. Lebanon is the only one that I know Israel is bombing right now.
Right.
Beirut specifically.
Yeah, they're in Lebanon going after the Hezbollah. But the attacks last night were generated by Hezbollah and the Houthis. And they were going after Israel. So how is Israel throwing a wrench in the works? when that was obviously IRGC fragments. Yeah, Israel didn't just casually bomb Hezbollah. That has been a steady campaign in southern Lebanon to get rid of the holdouts in Hezbollah, which, by the way, remember, are funded by who? The IRGC, as are the Houthis. So that's not Israel throwing wrenches in the works. You've got terrorists. They don't give a rip what the politicals are doing. And this is what we were talking about last night in the chat. We're now at a point where you're dealing with an ideology versus an army, right? That's always harder to defeat. Yeah, I agree with that, Just Fed Up. Israel has been abiding by what Trump has asked.
And that, like I say, Israel has claimed Lebanon was not on the table during that agreement. It was not in that agreement.
It isn't.
Right.
That
now,
is something.
Iran is saying they want it in the agreement, or they believed it was. And
You know, whoever made that statement is obviously not at the table, right?
Yeah, or something was misunderstood. Now, the misunderstanding could have came through Pakistan. I'm not sure. I'm just not sure.
Pakistan doesn't sound like to me, and of course I don't have all the particulars, but it doesn't sound like to me Pakistan is confused. I don't think whoever put out that statement about Lebanon is obviously not at the table. They're trying to add that in.
Could be that as well. Yeah, it could be.
So I want to take a minute here. I want to play Pete Hegseth today. By the way, he did a great job. Let me get this.
Iran has been a threat to the United States and the free world for 47 years. Chants of death to America, targeting our people, killing Americans, lying and blackmailing their way toward a nuclear weapon, so they thought. No longer. Not on our watch. Other presidents marked time and kicked the can down the road. President Trump made history. From the strike that took out Qasem Soleimani, to tearing up the disastrous Obama-Iran deal, to the precision campaign that obliterated Iran's nuclear sites in Operation Midnight Hammer, to the decisive military victory we just achieved in Operation Epic Fury. No other president has shown the courage and resolve of this commander-in-chief. President Trump forged this moment. Iran begged for this ceasefire, and we all know it. As the President Truth this morning, a big day for world peace. Iran wants it to happen. They've had enough. Operation Epic Fury was a historic and overwhelming victory on the battlefield. A capital V military victory. By any measure, Epic Fury decimated Iran's military and rendered it combat ineffective for years to come. You see, in less than 40 days, one of our combatant commands, Central Command, CENTCOM, using less than 10% of America's total combat power, dismantled one of the world's largest militaries. The world's leading state sponsor of terrorism proved utterly incapable of defending itself, its people, or its territory. We untied just a fraction of our strength, and Iran suffered a devastating military defeat. Together with our Israeli partners, America's military achieved every single objective, on plan, on schedule, exactly as laid out from day one. Iran's Navy is at the bottom of the sea, whether it's the Soleimani class, their frigate class, their prized drone aircraft carriers, submarines, mine layers sunk. Iran's Air Force has been wiped out. Iran no longer has an air defense, any sort of a comprehensive air defense system. We own their skies. Their missile program is functionally destroyed. Launchers, production facilities, and existing stockpiles depleted and decimated. And almost completely ineffective. Iran shot hundreds and hundreds of missiles and one-way attack drones at our aircraft carrier. They were obsessed with it, and they never got even close. Every single one of those shots easily shot down miles and miles away from the Abe Lincoln. They were blowing ammo into fantasy land. Contrast that with, most significantly, in last night's wave of more than 800 strikes, we finished completely destroying Iran's defense industrial base, a core pillar of our mission objective. What little they have left buried in bunkers is all they will have. They can still shoot, we know that. Their command and control is so decimated they can't really talk and coordinate, so they still may shoot here and there, but that would be very, very unwise. But they can no longer build missiles, build rockets, build launchers, or build UAVs. Their factories have been razed to the ground, set back in historic fashion. You see, had Iran refused our terms, the next targets would have been their power plants, their bridges, and oil and energy infrastructure, targets they could not defend and could not realistically rebuild. It would have taken them decades, and we were locked and loaded. They couldn't defend against it. President Trump had the power to cripple Iran's entire economy in minutes, but he chose mercy. He spared those targets because Iran accepted the ceasefire under overwhelming pressure. The new Iranian regime understood that a deal was far better than the fate that awaited them. This new regime just happened to look at what happened to their predecessors. Their top leadership was systematically eliminated. Their previous Iranian supreme leader, dead. The Supreme National Security Council Secretary, dead. The Supreme Leader Office
I love this
Advisor,
list.
dead. The Supreme Leader Military Office Chief, dead. The Defense Minister, no longer with us. The IRGC Commander, dead. The Armed Forces General Staff Commander, dead. The Intelligence Minister, dead. The IRGC Navy Commander, no longer here. The IRGC Intel Chief, dead. I skipped over a bunch, and I could go on and on and on, to include the so-called new Supreme Leader wounded and disfigured. This new regime was out of options and out of time, so they cut a deal. They know this agreement means that they will never, ever possess a nuclear weapon. Under the terms, any nuclear material they should have will be removed. Any material, they should not have will be removed. Right now, their dust is deeply buried and watched 24/7 overhead. The president has been clear from the beginning, there will be no Iranian nuclear weapons. Period. Full stop. Other presidents said it. President Trump did it. Operation Epic Fury. Less than 6 weeks, clear mission, decisive action, overwhelming firepower, America first, a historic battlefield victory. For decades, Iran killed Americans with roadside bombs in Iraq, using cowardly proxies to do their dirty work while they hid safely in Tehran. They struck our embassies with car bombs and attacked from the shadows, never daring to face us toe-to-toe. They thought they could bleed America with impunity. Well, they just learned the hard way what happens when you try to fight us directly. And even when they got lucky, one time in 40 days, and down 2 of our pilots, they couldn't hold them. In a daring 14-hour rescue operation, 7 hours in daylight and 7 hours of night, both pilots were recovered safely. Not once, but twice. A daylight thunder run right up the middle of their country. Boots on the ground. A midnight raid right up the middle of their country. Boots on the ground. 0 American casualties. The Iranians humiliated and demoralized. We control their fate, not the other way around. That's why they came to the table. Iran's defeat is America's retribution for every American lost to Iranian terror, especially those brave troops killed by Iranian-made roadside bombs in Iraq that my generation knows so well, and for the suffering their regime has inflicted around the world. Now we have a chance at real peace and a real deal. The War Department, for now, has done its part. We stand ready in the background to ensure Iran upholds every reasonable term. And as everyone knows, nobody makes a better deal than President Trump. To the warriors of epic fury, I say well done. You're the backbone of our country. Your skill, your bravery, and sheer guts and grit showed the world what America is all about. I'm proud of you. We're proud of you. President is proud of you. Job well done. But stay vigilant and stay ready. To the families of our fallen, your sacrifice was in service of a historic cause, and we will always remember your heroes, our heroes. We will continue to honor them. And to our Israeli allies, thank you for being a brave, capable, and willing ally on this battlefield. The rest of the world and the rest of our so-called allies saw what real capabilities look like. They should take some notes. Our troops, our American warriors, deserve the credit for this day. But God deserves all the glory. Tens of thousands of sorties, refuelings, and strikes carried out under the protection of divine providence. A massive effort with miraculous protection. Dude 44 Bravo spoke for all of us. God is good. The chairman will now provide an even deeper military detail on the historic success of Operation Epic Fury. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being here. I want to start this morning by honoring the 13 members of our American Joint Force who were killed in action thus far during this operation. Their sacrifice and that of their families is deeply important to us, and we are grateful for each of them, and will continue to mourn their loss. Their names and their bravery will never be forgotten. On February 28th, the President of the United States ordered the Joint Force to execute Operation Epic Fury with the direction to accomplish 3 distinct military objectives: destroy Iran's ballistic missile and drone capabilities, destroy the Iranian Navy, and destroy their defense industrial base to ensure that Iran cannot reconstitute the ability to project power outside their borders. Over the course of 38 days of major combat operation, the Joint Force achieved the military objectives as defined by the President. We welcome the ongoing ceasefire, and as the Secretary said, we hope that Iran chooses a lasting peace. But as Secretary Hegseth said, let us be clear, a ceasefire is a pause, and the Joint Force remains ready if ordered or called upon to resume combat operations with the same speed and precision as we've demonstrated over the last 38 days, and we hope that that is not the case. I want to congratulate and thank the leadership today at U.S. Central Command, including the Commander Admiral Brad Cooper, the Deputy Commander Lieutenant General Kevin Leahy, the Senior Enlisted Leader Fleet Master Chief Compton, and every one of the component commanders, senior enlisted leaders, and especially the staff down at U.S. Central Command, who does not get called out for any of the credit, but grinds 24/7 to help offer the options that we bring to the Secretary and the President. I also want to highlight the forces in the United States European Command under the command of Alexis Grinkowicz, who protected the western flank in support of CENTCOM. And I want to thank our partners across the intelligence community. Our ability to see and understand what an adversary is doing help us to be as decisive as we must be on the battlefield. And that includes DIA, NSA, NGA, the CIA, and the National Reconnaissance Office, and others. I want to thank the other combatant commands who have thus far contributed along the way to U.S. Central Command. This includes Transcom, Stratcom, Spacecom, SOCOM, and Cybercom, all of whom poured all in support of CENTCOM's efforts. And I want to thank, as the Secretary did, our Gulf partners who fought alongside each and every one of us every day. From the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, and Jordan, all who joined us together to defend and protect our people and our assets, and who, if required, stand ready to do so again. And I want to thank my team at the Joint Staff who work literally around the clock in order to help me offer the options that I must with the associated risks to the Secretary and to the President. They are the hardest working people that I know, and I am deeply grateful for their service. Most importantly today, I want to thank America's members of the Joint Force who've poured everything that they can into Operation Epic Fury, and their families who've worked 24 hours a day for 38 days. The Secretary and I could not be more proud of each and every one of you. And we deeply appreciate the support of the American people, who we know always have us in our thoughts and prayers. And we can feel this literally every single day. As the Secretary said, the United States has devastated the regime's ability to harm Americans and our interests for years to come. Since the beginning of major combat operations, the United States Joint Force has struck more than 13,000 targets, including in that 13,000 more than 4,000 dynamic targets that popped up on the battlefield and were immediately addressed, thanks to the exceptional command and control system and intelligence, acumen, and agility of our Joint Force. CENTCOM forces destroyed approximately 80% of Iran's air defense systems, striking more than 1,500 air defense targets, more than 450 ballistic missile storage facilities, 800 one-way attack drones storage facilities. All of these systems are gone. We've devastated Iran's command and control and logistical networks, destroying more than 2,000 command and control nodes and degrading their ability to target U.S. and friendly forces. It is, and we know this, incredibly frustrating right now to be a lower level Iranian commander trying to fight your fight. As the Secretary said, the Iranian Navy now lies mostly at the bottom of the Arabian Gulf, and we assess that we've sunk more than 90% of their regular fleet, including all of the major surface combatants, as the Secretary said. 150 ships are at the bottom of the ocean, and half of the IRGC Navy's small attack boats. Joint fires projected from the land, sea, and air executed more than 700 strikes against naval mine targets, and we had assessed that we destroyed more than 95% of their naval mines. And perhaps most importantly, we've destroyed Iran's defense industrial base, their ability to reconstitute those capabilities for years to come. We attacked, along with our partners, approximately 90% of their weapons factories. Every factory that produced Shahed one-way attack drones was struck. Every factory that produces the guidance systems that go into those drones was struck. Their missile defense industrial base is shattered, with more than 80% of their missile facilities gone, as well as their solid rocket motor production capability. It will take years for Iran to rebuild any major surface combatants, as more than 20 naval production and fabrication facilities have been damaged or destroyed, and nearly 80% of Iran's nuclear industrial base was hit, further degrading their attempts to attain a nuclear weapon. Throughout Operation Epic Fury, our joint force struck at the heart of Iran's ability to project power and threaten the United States and the region. And in order to do this, it required the service and sacrifice of more than 50,000 American warfighters deployed across CENTCOM, EUCOM, and stateside. The Joint Force flew more than 10,000 missions, including 62 bomber missions, 18 of which flew round trip from the United States to deliver bombs on military targets. Each of these missions was more than 30 hours in duration, and we did that 18 times. No other military in the world can do that. And it's a testament to the logistical force that quietly serves behind them. I cannot thank TRANSCOM and the Air Force Tanker and Mobility Force more. Combined with Army and Navy joint fires, we struck more than 13,000 targets. And along with our Gulf partners, we've thus far intercepted 1,700 ballistic missiles and one-way attack drones, defending our forces and our partners in the civilian population. And we remain ready to do so should the need arise. Along the way, we consume more than 6 million meals, and by my estimate, more than 950,000 gallons of coffee, 2 million energy drinks, and a lot of nicotine, but I am not saying that we have a problem. I've laid out the statistics, but it does not truly capture the nature of combat. This is gritty and unforgiving business. It's chaotic. It's hot, it's dark, it's unpredictable, and there's always unknowns. And our people proudly walked into those unknowns and continue forward. And through it all, the Joint Force has demonstrated the unwavering resolve that the nation demands of us. We are a mission-focused force, and our objectives always is to create the conditions for peace, and today we have, while be ready should that peace break, which we hope it is not. And we remain ready. Before I turn it back to the Secretary, I also want to quickly revisit the rescue of the Air Force fighter crew over the weekend. To give you an update, we've had, the Secretary and I have had the profound honor of speaking directly with many of the warfighters on that mission, from the downed crew that were picked up to those forces that went and got them. Hearing these stories firsthand has only deepened our appreciation for their tenacity, creativity, courage, and grit of the American Joint Force. This is a story that gets to the very heart and soul of who we are as a joint force, who we are as Americans. Selfless sacrifice in service of others. From the backseater, Dude 44 Bravo, whose pure and unadulterated joy at seeing those helicopters come into the valley to get his front seater in daylight because he knew the front seater did not have a jacket, and was so filled with heart-leaping joy at his front seater getting picked up, to the nighttime folks that went in and then got him, to the tanker forces that did the things that they had to do to give their own gas away, to the support packages, to those that went into the desert landing site not once, not twice, but 3 times as we fought through multiple contingencies. This was and is a joint force that has the guts to try, that does not quit, and who each and every day does the things that we must to dare to win. No lives were lost. We succeeded because the joint force is always at the ready. They trust each other, they trust their leaders, and they trust their training. And they remember first, foremost, and always that we do these things so that others may live, and we will never leave anyone behind. The success of Operation Fury thus far, and we hope it remains, culminates with this incredible rescue over the weekend, a direct example of the professionalism and courage of the United States military and our joint force. It's the service members on the front lines, our partners in the region, our teammates in the intelligence community, our civilian leaders in the OSW side of the house, the American workers who build the tools and weapons that we use, and the American people who back us up that help us to go do these things. I stand here humbled today, but frankly not surprised by what the Joint Force has been able to do. Their performance is fueled by a deep commitment to each other, their mission, and to our country. It is an incredible, deep honor for me to be a part of this Joint Force, and I'm humbled by the service and sacrifice each and every day that I am lucky enough to see. And finally, as I always do, I ask that we never forget our fallen and their families, especially those 13 fallen from Operation Epic Fury. May we always be worthy of their sacrifice and honor their legacy. And with that, sir, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll take a few questions.
Alexandra Ingersoll, One America News. First of all, thank you to our troops. What role is our military playing in escorting vessels through the Strait of Hormuz at this point? And the president said on Truth Social that the U.S. will be hanging around to make sure everything goes well. Obviously, Mr. Secretary, you just mentioned, we know the scars from hanging around in Iraq for decades. But what does that entail in terms of our military presence at this juncture?
Yeah, we'll be hanging around. We're not going anywhere. We're going to make sure Iran complies with this ceasefire and then ultimately comes to the table and makes a deal. So we'll stay put, stay ready, stay vigilant, as the chairman laid out. Our troops are prepared to defend, prepared to go on offense, prepared to restart at a moment's notice with whatever target package would be needed in order to ensure that Iran complies. As far as the Strait, you saw the initial agreement that was struck, which is Iran's letting ships go through. So they'll be that will be happening. They will be sailing, and ultimately, as the president, I mean, we've done an incredible job militarily inside the Strait of Hormuz. What Admiral Cooper, I failed to mention Admiral Cooper's name. He's done a phenomenal job, along with everybody at AFCENT and ABCENT and ARCENT and all the components down there, laying the groundwork for Iran. Iran doesn't have the same ability to defend it the way they did before, and so as the president has pointed out to the rest of the world, we barely get any of our energy out of the Strait. Just a tiny fraction. It's time for the rest of the world to step up and ensure that that stays open after President Trump and the War Department brought Iran to the place where they are voluntarily opening it right now, as was announced last night. Yes, Jerry.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and thank you both for the update. President Trump posted on Truth Social this morning that there has been a very productive regime change in Iran, and that there will be no enrichment of uranium, and the U.S. will work with Iran to dig up and remove the deeply buried nuclear dust. So I just have two questions here. So both you, Mr. Secretary, and the President have referred to a new regime in Iran. So is this not the regime that was at war with us for 47 years? And what do we think of when we're saying that this is a new regime? What are we thinking and what are we saying there? And then my second question is, with any future deal with Iran, is their handing over of all of their enriched uranium and they're promising not to enrich any future uranium a non-negotiable for the U.S.?
Well, it's always been non-negotiable that they won't have nuclear capabilities. And so right now it's buried and we're watching it. We know exactly what they have. And they know that, and they will either give it to us, which the president has laid out. They'll give it to us voluntarily. We'll get it. We'll take it out. Or if we have to do something else ourselves, like we did in Midnight Hammer or something like that, we reserve that opportunity. But what's clear, what the new Iranian regime knows, is they'll never have a nuclear weapon or the capability to get a path to one. As far as the new regime, you heard the list that I read. It's a new group of people who've seen the full capability of the United States military and has a new calculus about what it means to negotiate with us, hence why they came to the table wanting a ceasefire and the shooting to stop. So this new regime, which the regime has been changed, has a different interaction with the U.S. Right here.
Mr. Secretary, thank you.
Of course. I was going in front right here.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary and General Kane. Mary Margaret with the Daily Wire. Two questions. Iran has said that safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz will be possible in coordination with Iran's armed forces and, quote, technical limitations. What do you believe that means? And then we've also heard reports that Iran has continued striking targets well into this morning. At what point are we beyond a grace period? Are we giving them a grace period? Is there a miscommunication there? What's going on with that?
What we know is that Iran is going to say a lot of things. A lot of people are going to say a lot of things, claim a lot of things. What has been agreed to, what's been stated, is the strait is open. Our military is watching. I'm sure their military is watching, but commerce will flow. And that's what you saw the markets react to, is that reality. As far as shooting, that we were monitoring it last night in real time. Of course we are. Iran would be wise to find a way to get the carrier pigeon to their troops out in remote locations to know not to shoot not to shoot any longer one-way attacks or missiles, because it takes time sometimes for ceasefires to take hold. We're watching it. We're prepared if necessary, but we hope and believe that it'll hold. Yes.
Thank you, Secretary.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Why are you so rude? Just wait. I'm calling on people.
Thank you, Secretary Hegseth. Yesterday in the President's Truth Social, he threatened to wipe out a civilization. That statement elicited a huge response in America. If Iran did not come to the table and make a deal yesterday by the deadline, was the President really prepared to wipe out Iran entirely?
Like I said, we had a target set, locked and loaded, of infrastructure, bridges, power plants. Remember, this is a terror regime. The military regime used all of these things for dual use to fund their military, to fund their terror campaigns. We had a lot of legitimate targets. They knew exactly the scope of what we were capable of. We hit some military targets on Karg, which is a bit of a signal. They can't defend it. And so Iran ultimately understood their ability, their future, to produce, to generate power, to fuel their terrorist regime was in our hands, was in President Trump's hands. That's why they came to the table. He ultimately said, we can take it all from you. Your ability to export energy will be taken away. And the United States military has the ability to strike those things with impunity. That type of threat is what brought them to the place where they effectively said, hey, okay, we want to cut this deal. Yes, right here.
Good morning, Mr. Secretary, Mr. Chairman. David Zier, Real America's Voice. During the ceasefire, what do we do when we see Iran rearming, regrouping, repositioning weapon systems and air defenses? And also, have we confirmed the specific model type of air defense or man pads that took down our F-15? And is it still a threat for our patrols?
We're still working through the specific details around that particular shoot down. And the crews, when they normally return, go through a debriefing process along with the other members of that flight that were out there. And they'll go back, as they always do, and forensically look at what are the tactical lessons learned. Did we sense or see something? Could we have done something different? We do that, as I mentioned in a prior press conference, every single time we take any loss like that, so that we become a quick learning organization. On the other part of your question around the movement of Iranian military forces, U.S. CENTCOM will continue to monitor that situation. They will continue to have a series of response options, and if need be, will come to the Secretary and to the President for guidance and be prepared to do the things that they're ordered to do so against valid military targets in accordance with the normal procedures that we have.
I would just note, it's a good question. The more Iran moves forces, the more they emplace forces, the more easily targetable they are for us right now. Remember, we're able to look, we're able to see, we're able to sense. We know so if they try to preposition, they're just creating riper military targets for us to strike should they make the wrong decision at the table. Right here.
Mr. Secretary, Louis Martinez with ABC News. First, a question to General Kane, sir. In your personal opinion, were the risks of the Strait of Hormuz being closed because of the conflict, were they mitigated early enough in part of the decision-making process to lead up to the decision to take action against Iran? And in your opinion, is Iran in control of the Strait of Hormuz? We just heard the Secretary say that Iran is letting them ships through, which would imply that potentially it's not just. The Secretary also said that the U.S. That the strait is open. You did say that, sir. But in your opinion, sir, how can the U.S. ensure safe passage? Mr. Secretary, can you say today that the United States achieved, the administration achieved the military goals that you've constantly delineated? But strategically, is that a victory because of that? And also, you said earlier that
are you catching the dig?
Mercy. But you yourself had said 3 weeks ago that we will give no quarter to Iranian troops. How do you correlate those two? And do you think that your comments may have put American troops at risk?
No. I try to be nice up here, but you did listen to what I said, right? I laid out the objectives. We believe we've accomplished them, and it's a historic military victory. And President Trump has the option as the commander-in-chief to compel an adversary to the table, which is precisely what he did. And at the end, he chose to say, you know what, I'd rather talk to you at the table than obliterate your capability to export oil and fund your terror regime. So he did make that choice. That was his choice. He was a president of peace, and he's been willing to make those really tough calls that the American people elected him to do. Nothing we've done, not a single thing we've done. This is a typical, of course, it's ABC. Not a single thing we've done has put an American troop in more of a harm's way. We've only set our troops up to harm Iranian military capabilities, which they've done to devastating fashion and to great success. Mr. Chairman, you had a point.
There's a lot in that question. I'd love to take that offline and answer it, but I'm struggling to find exactly what your question was, and that's probably me, not you.
No.
Okay, all right.
Sorry
about
Mr.
that.
Chairman, it was an indictment framed as a question, so you're forgiven for not understanding. Go.
Wasn't that great? Wasn't that great? That ABC reporter thought he was going to be very coy with his condemnation of our military efforts. I thought that was great. So what do you think?
I loved it.
We've actually got some very good information proving that we're being successful, right?
Yes.
So who do we listen to?
I'll listen to Pete and Kane.
Yeah, at some point we have to step back and say, do we or do we not trust the president and his team? Or are we going to continue to listen to people here talking about things that have not been put on the table? It says here, Donald Trump has said Lebanon is not part of the 2-week ceasefire deal that was agreed to overnight. Israel launched a massive wave of strikes on Lebanon after the deal was announced. And he's saying that Lebanon was supposed to have been on the table. Okay, did you hear what he said, though? Trump said that's not part of the deal. So, Eddie, are you catching this? And there was somebody else. Who was it? Oh, God, I can't remember now. I'm sorry. But one of the things you're going to have to do is you're going to have to step back and say, where is this information coming from? And if they can't vet the information for you with credible information, it's something you need to dismiss. The noise is just over the top. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, since when does the press know more than the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and the Secretary of the Department of War, and he sat there acting like he knew all about it and he didn't know anything? I was like,
right.
Damn, I'm laughing out of his chair.
Well, I'm glad to see credible information that, and I just showed you, the president of Iran seems to be the one that's negotiating the peace deal. He was already a stuffed shirt for the IRGC. So here we go. I mean, we're in a very different place. I want to end, I know I'm video heavy today, but this, I don't know how many saw Captain Stevie. Did anybody see him? Wait a minute, let me make sure we get past this.
Tonight, new details about that daring and dangerous rescue of an American aviator shot down over Iran.
This is a
United
really
States
cool
military
assessment.
said a missing pilot is safe this afternoon after a daring rescue mission in Iran. The crew member was hiding in the mountains after he ejected from his jet on Friday.
Just this past weekend, an F-15 Strike Eagle was shot down over the Zagros Mountains in southern Iran. Both airmen ejected from the aircraft. They ejected safely. They ended up on the ground, but they ended up quite a distance from each other. I'll explain why in just a minute. However, the pilot of the aircraft was retrieved within hours. The backseater, the weapons systems operator, or the WISO as they're known, wasn't recovered for 48 hours. It was in the early hours of Easter Sunday on Sunday morning when they finally extracted, and this is an incredible story of how they extracted this colonel from enemy territory. And that's what we're going to talk about in this video, is all of the aircraft and all of the coordination that went into getting this guy out of Iran. So let's unwrap together how such an incredible mission takes place. It's a combination of three things that come together: training, equipment, and trust. We have the most lethal military that's ever walked the face of the earth. And why is that? It's not because of our equipment. It's not because of our cleverness. It's not because we're smarter than the other guys. It's not even our technology. It has to do with a little thing called trust. We train our people and then we trust them to do the mission. Adapt and overcome is kind of the motto. As an airman, as a pilot for the military for years, adapt and overcome. If you're out on a mission and something changes, you're going to adapt and overcome to a dynamic and fluid situation. And that's exactly what happened with this F-15. So two F-15s are out flying around. There's a lead and there's a wingman, and they're out on their mission. Whatever the mission was, doesn't make any difference at this point. When one gets shot down, the mission instantly changes. And so the lead or the wingman, whoever it is that's remaining, now becomes the on-scene commander. And now they go into something that's called CSAR. And you've probably heard a lot about that on the news over the weekend. That's Combat Search and Rescue. And we'll talk about what Combat Search and Rescue is, but their mission, not their primary mission, one of the secondary missions is to help and assist with CSAR. Or if they get pressed into it because their wingman or their lead just got shot down, they now instantly become the on-scene, on-site commander and the CSAR leader until other better trained, better equipped CSAR assets can be brought into the situation. Hopefully they don't have to be brought in. Hopefully you can retrieve both of the downed airmen within minutes or hours at the most, and the pilot was retrieved within the first few hours. Now, what takes place is a compilation or a confluence, I guess, if you will, of two different things, and you've heard both of these on the news. One is that CSAR, that Combat Search and Rescue, and another thing is something called SEER School. You've heard it referred to, and it's survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. Every pilot that has a warfare designator that's going to end up either carrying weapons or in some sort of war zone will go to SEER School. And SEER School is a 7-day school where you are trained to survive, to evade, and if you get those two things right, hopefully you won't have to resist or try to escape. And that's exactly what happened here in this situation. The backseater, the colonel, he was trained at SEER School, and he survived, and he evaded, and he got extracted so he didn't have to resist and escape. Imagine what a disaster this would have been all across the board, not only for him personally, but also for the war effort over there in Iran. Had he been captured, he would have been paraded out in the streets. He would have been publicly humiliated, beaten, tortured, you name it, and then used as a propaganda tool to negotiate something, with us. And that's an untenable position. And so every effort was made to extract this guy ahead of time, not because he would have been used as a propaganda tool, but because that's what we do here in the U.S. No airman is ever left behind, and it's a monumental effort that goes into it. What is that monumental effort? Okay, so once the F-15 is shot down, both airmen eject, and now the mission changes. The new mission, the CSAR mission, is a Combat Search and Rescue. I'm going to tell you at the end of this video my personal story, a story that changed the direction of my life as a human being, and it's directly related to CSAR. What takes place now took place over in Iran on Friday. Well, the wingman, or whoever was left behind, the lead or the wingman that wasn't shot down, does three things instantly. They assume the role of the on-scene commander, and they start making calls for help. And they also relay the situation. They're going to give the present position of the downed aircraft. They're going to try to assess what's going on the ground. Did both pilots make it down safely? Are they evading? What's going on? And are there enemy troops coming in? They're going to give an on-site immediate evaluation to a dynamically changing situation. At the same time, they're playing both a defensive and an offensive role. Since they might be the only other aircraft on the scene at that moment, they have to make sure that they don't get shot down too. At the same time, they're on the offense, making sure that whoever it was that shot down their wingman doesn't shoot at them. And the third thing that they're doing is they calculate their bingo fuel. They want to make sure that they don't run out of fuel, because you can get all kind of caught up in the excitement of the moment and stay out there too long. What seems to you like 2 or 3 minutes might end up being in half an hour or 45 minutes. So the next thing they're going to do is calculate their bingo fuel and communicate that to CENTCOM, whoever it is that they're talking to, the AWACS aircraft or whoever's the big eye in the sky. They're going to communicate, I've got got 40 minutes of fuel left or 30 minutes of fuel left, and then I've got a bingo back to where I need to go. So I can stay on site, on station here for 30, 40, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever it ends up being. So they're doing all three of those things at the same time. Now, CENTCOM, Central Command, goes into action. The next step for them is they redirect CSAR assets dedicated combat search and rescue assets to the scene. So they don't have somebody flying around all the time. That's all they do is CSAR. They will have other aircraft out there, though, that's more of their primary mission. The A-10. The A-10 Thunderbolt, right, affectionately known as the Warthog, one of their primary missions is combat search and rescue. So they'll now, CENTCOM looks and says, okay, where's the nearest A-10? There's an A-10. They call that A-10 and they go, your mission just changed. Here's the coordinates. I need you to head over here. Your mission now is to combat search and rescue. They give them the preliminary information about a fluid, dynamic, moving situation, and they head right over there. The A-10 Warthog is better suited for this. That airplane is actually literally designed to have parts blown off of it and continue to fly. In addition to that, the pilots now are trained to be able to assess the situation on the ground, and that airplane is nothing but a great big cannon right down the middle. They can lay down suppressive fire and keep the enemy forces at bay, or they can put a perimeter around the aircraft better than an F-15 can. They fly a little bit slower. They're a little bit more maneuverable down low and so forth. So now, while CENTCOM is putting together the most immediate assets to come in, they're also going to call for, if they've got one in the area, an HH-60, a Jolly Roger. If they've got one of these helicopters, it's going to be the primary vehicle that they're going to use to extract whatever airmen are down on the ground. And in fact, that's exactly what they did. They had an HH-60 somewhere nearby. CENTCOM commands them to come in. The A-10 is keeping suppressive fire down. The HH-60 comes in. They took fire themselves. They extracted the pilot. The pilot was the pilot at the controls, the front seater on the aircraft. And that's the report we heard on Friday, that one of the pilots, and they keep calling them the pilots, it's not two pilots, it's a pilot and a WSO. The pilot was extracted on Friday, but the WSO was still at large and presumably evading. We didn't know whether that individual was dead or alive. The assumption was they were alive, let's hope. And but they don't give you much information about that. Why? Because they want to play a giant cat and mouse game with the IRGC over there looking for this guy. So now all those assets come together. That HH-60 ended up returning safely to base, even though some of the crew members on board the helicopter were injured by enemy fire, and the helicopter itself was injured or hurt or disabled, not disabled completely, but it was damaged, let's put it that way, by enemy fire. They did make it back safely with the pilot, and now the hunt's on for the WSO. So it's now a race against time as the IRGC now, this is going to be an absolute coup for them if they can get a hold of that downed airman, because like I said earlier, they're going to parade that person on TV, and it's going to be a propaganda victory for them. U.S. forces now create a perimeter. CENTCOM is coordinating other assets to come in temporarily while they get the other assets that they need to bring in that do this full time into the arena. It's going to take a number of hours for them to get ready, to get launched, and to get into the arena. Meanwhile, they're going to take the A-10s and the other helicopters, and they're going to build a perimeter around this downed airman to keep everybody at bay. All right. What's the WSO now doing after the ejection? Well, reports were that he was injured, but now he's going to lean on his SEER training. What is SEER training? Survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. I went to SEER school. I went there 40 years ago. I went there on my birthday of all things. And it's a place where they spend a week training you in classroom about how to survive out in the wild. Then you spend a few days out in the wild, and I mean out in the wild with nothing, surviving and evading the enemy. And there are certain techniques that they teach you. I won't give any of those away here, but there's certain things that you are trained to do to be able to stay away from the enemy. That's your number one priority. Don't get captured. If you do get captured, then you spend a couple of days at a fake camp that they set up for you. But it's as realistic as you can possibly get. And again, they call it prisoner of war camp. You get in there and you're beaten and interrogated and everything else is just horrible. And then you actually work with the other people that have been, captured to work on a plan of escape. But hopefully surviving and evading is all you ever have to do. So all of our airmen are trained to evade the enemy. And so now this colonel that's been shut down, the WSO, he goes into evasion mode, injured, but he's going to get rid of everything that could identify him, anything that's going to bog him down, anything that might shine or make noise. He's going to either bury it or get rid of it. And then he's going to head for and this is where it's a dynamic situation. He's got to assess the terrain around him and find the best place to hide. And now he's going to hide, and he's going to travel by night if he needs to move, and he's going to hunker down by day. If he hears the IRGC coming anywhere close, it's all about the quiet game, right? Getting underneath to something where they can't see you, maybe even burying yourself in the ground so that they can't actually physically see you. And then at night, that's when you move. Now, he's got with him equipment to be able to communicate to the good guys. And some of that is just a good old-fashioned radio, but there's also a beacon on board. All of this is encrypted. He can send little short messages, and that's the key here. You don't want to get on the radio and start talking because you're going to give away your position to the enemy. So little short encrypted messages, for instance, safe on the ground, looking for extraction point. There's little preloaded messages in this thing that let the other side know or let our side know that you're okay. And so when the president and the Secretary of War and the others said we were tracking the whereabouts of the colonel, the WSO, the entire time, they had a beat on them, and they had a beacon that they could follow. The most low-tech thing that they have in their equipment bag is a mirror, of all things. And you think, well, why? Are they going to check their looks? No, it's a signal mirror, and it's got a little hole in the back of it so you can look through with your eyeball. And if you see a good guy airplane coming, you can use the sun, and you can actually just take this mirror and send a little glint up. So you're flying along in an airplane looking around for where this guy might be, and all of a sudden you see a flash and another flash and a third flash. You're like, what is that? That's his mirror, right? That's as low tech as it possibly can get. Now, it's not clear exactly how he communicated, but they did communicate with the rescuing forces, and they put together a mission within 48 hours to extract him. What's the equipment? Well, I just described it. He's got water with him. He's got food. He's got that radio beacon, minimal broadcast. He's even got that mirror with him. Now, he's going to stay hydrated as he can. He's also going to take some food to keep his energy level up. Hopefully, he's going to get out of there within 48 hours, which he did. CENTCOM now, at the same time, Central Command, tracks their position while they bring in CIA assets, and these are widely reported. The CIA assets were brought in to basically send out bad information to the Iranians. So they've got people over there and assets over there where they can disinform the Iranians and send them on a wild goose chase in the wrong direction, and hopefully buy some time. And that's the whole idea of the intel assets, and their role in this is to buy some time for the downed airmen. Also, Central Command brings in dedicated CSAR assets, and that's where the C-295W aircraft comes in. This is a cool little airplane. It's a little twin engine aircraft. Looks like a mini C-130, and its main mission is to go in and get out of a combat search and rescue situation, to bring people and equipment in and to get people and equipment out. And so it's very stealth, very quick. That's their main mission. They'll also use MH-6 helicopters. They're called Little Boys, and they're little bitty things, but boy, they're fast and zippy, and they can shoot back. All right, and also NC-130J. And the C-130 has been around forever, but the NC-130J is a special aircraft that they bring into war zones that's designed for this combat search and rescue mission. So they used all three of those aircraft in this extraction of the WSO. Now, if they've got enough time, they're going to gather the proper ground forces, the elite ground forces that have been trained to extract this pilot. And the reports say that they had Delta Force, Navy SEALs, and even Army Rangers involved in this. Some of the reports said that there was as many as 100 people on the ground. I can tell you that that's not true. There's no way they're going to put 100 boots on the ground to extract one guy. Why? Because you have to pull 100 boots off of the ground to get that one guy out. This is going to be a much smaller, much more lethal force than that. But there were boots on the ground, elite boots that are trained to go find the downed airman, give him medical assistance, get him where he needs to go, and then get on one of these, either that C-295W or the NC-130J, and get the heck out of there as fast as they can, while building a perimeter around him to keep him safe. So all of that stuff is going on. There's also jamming aircraft that are at altitude over top to try to jam the communications of the enemy. All of that stuff is going on all at the same time. Now, In the early morning hours of Sunday, April 5th, these forces and all of these aircraft came together in one fell swoop to extract the weapons systems operator that had found himself a little place in the mountains. He had found a little place down in a crevice where he could communicate, but for the most part, he was very safe. Navy SEALs and Delta forces are lowered onto the airmen, and he's extracted. Next comes in the NC-130Js, and the reports are that 2 NC-130J aircraft, then they can land on just about anything. All they have to have is some sort of improvised field that's fairly smooth and level, and they can land on just about any terrain. They came in to extract everybody, the teams and the downed airmen. But the reports were they got bogged down in the deep sand and they got stuck. So both of those aircraft, according to the reports on the news reports, were torched. They were blown up so that the enemy couldn't get any, access to them after the fact. And that 2 more or 3 more aircraft were brought in. Most likely it was that C-295W, that twin engine airplane I talked about just a minute ago. That's smaller, it's lighter, and you can get everybody in and out on those aircraft as well. So they most likely brought those in, but I don't have that confirmed. All right, everyone was loaded and everyone was extracted, and there was heavy fire taken by these extraction teams as they were delivering heavy fire back to the IRCG troops on the ground. But the good news is they prevailed, and our U.S. forces, our special forces, got in. They got the airmen out safely. Everybody's alive, and they got out. And the Iranians did not. They weren't allowed to capture this guy and use him for propaganda purposes. I promised you at the beginning of this video that I'd tell you a story. And how did CSAR change my life as a pilot and as a human being? Well, way back many years ago, this was back in early 1984, I hadn't even been trained as a pilot yet. I hadn't had my first flight for the Navy, but the Navy gave me all of my training. And to get qualified to become a Navy pilot, I had to get commissioned as an officer first. And so there's a thing, it doesn't exist anymore, called Aviation Officer Candidate School. It was down in Pensacola, Florida, AOCS. The movie An Officer and a Gentleman was modeled after AOCS. And it was there for, about a dozen years training pilots, future pilots, to become officers. And it was about a 20-week school, boot camp for officers, if you will. And it was headed up by Marine drill instructors. And these guys were the nastiest human beings on the planet. And they put you through hell for 20 weeks. The head Marine drill instructor was a man by the name of Master Sergeant Flager. And if Master Sergeant Flager, if you're still alive or around, DM me, I would love to get in touch with you. But this guy, and I'll just refer to him going forward as the Marine from hell. He looked like he was etched out of stone. He had a scar on his face. Nobody knew why. We were too chicken to ask. And he was the head of all of the other little demon Marine drill instructors that made our lives miserable for 20 weeks, but turned us into men and got us ready to become pilots that would follow the model of the pilots that came before us, that no airman ever gets left behind, and to adapt and overcome. And I was at the end of my training. I had made it through the entire 20 weeks. We started with 72 candidates in that class. We ended with 28, and I was one of the 28 that was remaining. So there was a lot of attrition. That tells you just how intense this training was. And I had basically 24 hours to go. The next day I was going to get commissioned as an officer. Then I was going to get my flight school date and start my flight training. So I was done. I was there. I made it, right? At that point, Master Sergeant Flager calls me and all of my other classmates down to the classroom. And I thought, oh, brother, here it comes again. Just one last humiliation. I'm up for it. I don't care what it is. I've made it this far. I'm not quitting now. And I thought one more final humiliation is coming my way. So everybody marched down to the classroom. We were instructed to sit in our seats. We did, and Master Sergeant Flager came in, but his mood was different that day. He was kind of calm and not the irate guy he had been up to that point. And he just sat on the corner of the desk and he said, hey, I want to tell you a story. So that's interesting. He's never kind of opened up that way to us before. And he said, tomorrow, this time, you'll all be commissioned officers in the United States Navy. He said, my time with you has ended. He said, I can have no more training with you after today. He said, but starting tomorrow, it's on you. And he said, I want to tell you a story about when I was a staff sergeant in Vietnam. And he said, when I was a staff sergeant in Vietnam, I was in charge of a small unit of men that were involved in a CSAR operation, Command, Search, and Rescue. And he said, my unit of men were all very young. He said they were young Marines, 18, 19, 20 years old. They had been trained to go behind enemy lines and retrieved pilots who had been shot down. And he said, I did this mission many, many times, and I took many, many of these young Marines, and he said, my job was to get them psyched up to go behind enemy lines at risk to their own life to retrieve a downed pilot. And he said it didn't make any difference whether the pilot was dead or alive. The trip got made anyway. And he said, but what I knew that they didn't was that every time, on average, when we made these missions to retrieve one downed pilot, I would lose at least 2 men. He said, I knew that evening that 2 of those young men that I was facing and getting all psyched up to go retrieve a pilot would be in a body bag later that night. He said, that was the hardest thing I ever had to do in my military career. He said, now that my training is finished with you, he said, I want to ask you a couple of questions. He said, knowing what you know now, that if you ever get shot down behind enemy lines and somebody's going to come for you, it's not a matter of if, somebody's going to come for you. And on average, 2 other people are going to sacrifice their life to retrieve you. He said, it wasn't whether the pilot was dead or alive that bothered me. He said, what bothered me most was this. I didn't know whether they were worth the trip. As a pilot, are they worth the trip? And then I swear he looked straight at me, but he was looking at all of us. And he said, I've got a question for you. Will you be worth the trip? I can still see him staring at me. And I thought, wow, it is on me. It's on me going forward. I've got to make sure that I'm worth the trip. Now, is my life worth some other human being's life? No. But I got to work as hard as I can to be the best pilot I can possibly be, the best team member, the best officer, the best military man, the best warrior I can possibly be. Why? Because someday that trip might get made. My friends, we just watched that trip getting made on Easter weekend. We watched all of these elite troops and forces coming together, an incredible combination of communication and training and equipment and trust in one another. It all came together this weekend to extract one person. One. Was that colonel, was that WSO, was he worth the trip? Yeah, he was. He was worth the trip. And that trip gets made regardless of whether he's worth it or not. And so those words have resonated with me all these years. Are you worth the trip? And there's so many other applications with that question. You know, some of you are struggling with a marriage that's in jeopardy. Some of you are struggling with children that are wayward. You're struggling with issues in life of self-respect and so forth. And you're wondering, you know, is my marriage worth the trip? Yeah, it is. Are your children worth the trip? Yeah, they are. Is your self-respect worth the trip? Yes, it is. You're worth it. You're worth it. You might have to dig in hard, and you might have to fight, and you might have to evade, and you might have to do what you need to do, but do it. It might be a dynamic situation like this one we just looked at this weekend, but it's worth the trip. So my friends, I thought you'd like to hear that story at the end. That's part of what shaped me as a human being, as a man, as a father, as a husband, and as a naval aviator. I wanted to make sure that if that trip ever got made for me, that I would be worth the trip. Well, now you know. I'm Captain Steve.
That's a final thought. That's a wow, isn't it?
Yeah, I love Captain Steve. I listen to
Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see all of you here.
I think what's important to remember, because I think we can all ask that question of ourselves at any point in our lives. Did you catch the part about the camaraderie, that they trust each other, they train for this? We have a military that literally was unleashed to do what they were trained to do. And for all the noise that's out there, I think it behooves us to keep in mind that we have impeccable leadership. We voted for exactly what we're watching. So I guess I can say this without any sort of regret or compunction. It's time to harden yourself, put down the noise, face reality, and trust that there are good people doing the hard work. With that, anybody in the chat have any final thoughts you'd like to add?
An amazing weekend.
Yeah. Anybody else? And did I shut everybody down?
Dude,
I didn't hear that. Say that again.
they're sniffling and using Kleenexes.
Yeah. Well, with that, everybody, I know it was video heavy, but I thought they were all responsible and relevant videos. There's a lot of information out there that isn't passing the smell test. By the way, today Melania got her first hit. Did you guys catch that? Her first conviction on the Take It Down Act. I think that's a very big deal. I'm going to just drop the link into the two chats because it is getting late and I don't want to keep you too late. I'm not Sean, although I love Sean. Before I go, I'm going to go through the red pills because, gold pills rather, because Sean just kind of lost his mind. He dropped a bunch of stuff. He started with cookies, gave us 4 cookies, and then he gave me a 5th cookie because I asked him, why aren't you in here? And he said, because I might need to do a streaming intervention. Then he gifted another cookie and another cookie. And then he says, you're going to be called upon in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I went, okay. And then he gifted another cookie. And then he said, gifted a cookie. Speaking of grinding, give it up to Feisty for all her impressive research, even if I struggle to comprehend it from time to time. Sorry about that, guys. And then he gifted a can, pair of shades, a phone, a ship, a fleet. And then Thong Chaser jumped in with a cookie. I appreciate everybody for doing that. I don't have any idea what all that means yet. I'm learning. I'm working on it. I'm just now starting to get into Pilled and what it has to offer. I know, get a cookie jar, right, Danny? I get it. I gotta get a cookie jar and start collecting all this. I haven't done any of that yet. I will figure it out. Again, God bless you all. I hope you had a wonderful Easter weekend. And that as our lead up to Pentecost comes in, that you keep remembering God is in charge. And he's got good and wonderful people working in his behalf. So God bless you all. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day and rest of your week. I think I'm on with Sean this week, but I don't know which day that is. So you'll have to wait for the announcement. I can't remember which day I'm on anymore. Talk to you all soon. Have a wonderful week. Thank you, Eddie. I appreciate hearing that. Talk to you all tonight at 8 o'clock in the chat room.
Have a wonderful one.
Whispers in the static, questions in the fire. The veil of flame, unmasking the players in the shadowed game, where the silence breaks, the hidden shakes. She names the unspoken